Welcome back everybody, my name's Nick930 and these are 10 things you should know about the upcoming Battlefield 5. Now that the closed alpha test for Battlefield 5 has come to an end, I'd like to share my thoughts on the upcoming game with all the new features I'm really enjoying, and some of the things I think need to be tweaked by release. Despite Battlefield 5 looking like a carbon copy of Battlefield 1 at first glance, this couldn't be any further from the truth. Battlefield 5 plays very differently thanks to its refined gunplay balancing and reworking of the franchise's long-running gameplay mechanics. Firstly, the weapons are deadlier than ever. Most of the weapons I used in Battlefield 5's alpha had some great stopping power, allowing me to down enemies in only a few well-placed shots. Having played quite a bit of Battlefield 1, this is a great change. I felt like I was sinking a lot of rounds into enemies in Battlefield 1, which made for a lot of frustrating situations. To balance this significantly lower time to kill, players are given less ammo than ever before. The Assault class gets around 2 magazines for their assault rifles and SMGs. Snipers only get 15 rounds when they spawn. There's a ton of ways to get more ammo in this game, including from support players, off of dead bodies, and various supply caches scattered around the map, much like the original 1942 and Bad Company. This extends to the health mechanics as well. Players who are hurt will not be able to just regenerate all of their health by running around a corner and praying. Your health will replenish a little bit, but you'll be forced to seek out first aid from a medic or a health cache. If you were killed, you're now put into a down state similar to Battlefield 2 and 2042, where you're stuck in a first-person perspective from your body and forced to call out for a medic. You can rotate your camera around and look for medics nearby, and just like Battlefield 1, you can see all nearby medics that could potentially revive you. But new to Battlefield 5 is the ability for squad members to revive you, regardless of what class they're playing. A squad revive is slower than a medic revive, and since the revives now force players into long animations, it'll put both you and your savior at risk. This effectively ends the long-running Battlefield tactic of running around the map reviving people by stabbing their feet really fast, and should better balance the medic class. However, the animations still need some work, as they often clip through nearby objects and terrain. And the hitbox for activating the revive animation is a bit small at the moment, requiring players to be directly on top of the player to initiate the revive. I would also like a way to cancel a revive in case an enemy shows up. Battlefield 5 has seen its squad size once again reduced to 4 players, a change that is likely being made to make the game more competitive. Personally, I prefer the larger squad sizes as it allows me and my friends to coordinate better as a team, but the new squad revive mechanic might be abused with larger squad sizes. I noticed far more instances of groups of players moving together than I ever witnessed in Battlefield 1. Since the time to kill is much higher and the ammo count is so low, players are effectively forced to stick close to the squad members and attack objectives together. This means that you're likely never going to be safe after killing an enemy unless you're also rewarded with a squad wipe notification. The squad wipe has been changed slightly. Once an entire squad has been killed simultaneously, those players are instantly removed from the down state and can't be revived by any nearby medics, even if they were just killed. This is a strange change as it doesn't really make any sense, especially when you're alone moving with a large group of teammates and you just so happen to get down during the assault. Speaking of assaulting, let's talk about the game's objectives and game modes. First, Battlefield 1 will be featuring its own Battle Royale mode, but it won't be available at the game's launch in October. There's no real details about this mode yet, but it's clear from the new gameplay direction this game is taking that it's featuring more hardcore elements to bring it in line with what Battle Royale fans expect. The popular Operations mode is back in Battlefield 5 and is now called Grand Operations, though the map feature didn't feel all that grand. Instead of spanning multiple maps with large trench lines and a ton of explosions and vehicles, this map featured a lot of infantry-based combat under a night sky as British paratroopers dropped down and attempted to destroy gun emplacements. At least one player on the Allied team gets a special explosive device that can be used to arm the many objectives, while the Germans need to defend and disarm whenever necessary. If the Germans fail to stop the Allied assault, the round ends and the map fast forwards to daytime, where you're forced to defend a few objectives just like Battlefield 1's Operation mode. Now, I'm not quite sure if it was the flow of the map or the reworked spotting system, but I felt like there were far less than 64 players in the game. Engagements felt smaller and more spread out, and I never felt overwhelmed by snipers, machine guns, or explosives. Now, this could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on what you enjoy, but I personally kind of miss the chaos of the all-out war. This feels more like a Bad Company game than an official numbered Battlefield game, but again, this is probably because of the flow of the map, so I'm not really sure. Back to Battlefield 5 is the classic Conquest mode, only this time we have actual tickets again that count down instead of up. The last team with tickets remaining is the winner, and I found matches were close very often, meaning they probably did a good job balancing the alpha map's design. The objective zones feel way too large though. Almost every time me and a large group of teammates captured an objective, there was always one enemy hiding somewhere, and it could take forever to track them down. The game's spotting has been greatly enhanced. 3D spotting is not nearly as common, as only snipers using the spotting scope can do it. Other players can now ping a location much like in Rainbow Six Siege, which will give a rough estimation of where the enemies are located. Suppressing an enemy seems to also spot them for your team, but I'm not entirely sure how this functions yet. Because of this change to the spotting system, you can more easily navigate the map and hide without enemies even knowing where you are. I found it difficult to spot enemies at times with so much visual noise like the snow effects and the enhanced destruction. Destruction has seen some marginal improvements with each Battlefield game, but Battlefield 5 seems to make the effect a bit more organic. Buildings seem to have more points where they break apart, making for better looking destruction overall. Snow piled up on the roof will slide off, and the terrain, when detonated, will have a noticeably larger crater much like the destruction in the original Bad Company game. Some buildings even light on fire a little bit, which looks really cool especially in the darker maps. And despite this, there feels like less explosive spam overall. Battlefield 1 had a real problem with explosive spam, with players constantly chucking grenades down narrow paths and sitting on top of ammo boxes. Grenades in Battlefield 5 take much longer to detonate, and can be thrown from much further than before. I rarely managed to score a kill with a grenade, and they felt more like they were tools to scare enemies out of cover than actual lethal weapons. Now it could be that I wasn't using an actual frag grenade, but they just didn't feel that powerful. That being said, there is one thing that definitely needs some tweaking regarding explosives: the V1 rockets. This rocket is horrifying as it buzzes across the sky and then drops silently on a nearby position and detonates violently, shaking the screen and even knocking you off your feet. Now I think this new gameplay mechanic is really cool, but the fact that squad leaders can call it in makes the end of rounds ridiculous, as every squad leader from both teams is just trying to call it in whenever they get a chance, and there's V1s flying back and forth. It ruins the novelty of this crazy weapon when it's just spammed 4 times within a minute of gameplay. But it does look really cool when it explodes, and the range for its knockback effect isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. After the dust settles, you'll find a lot of the buildings and structures destroyed, with very little cover to hide behind. Now this was always a problem with the later Battlefield games, as you'd have objectives that were completely suicide to try and capture after the enemy tanks completely leveled all the nearby buildings. Battlefield 5 introduces the ability to build cover, much like the old Battlefield 2 mod Project Reality. Using any class, you can equip a special hammer tool that lets you create sandbag walls, barricade windows, and even set up gun emplacements at preset locations around the map. It's not very clear where you can build at times. I found myself often trying to build a large sandbag wall inside a broken building, but only being allowed to build a single wall or piece of wood at the top of the stairs. I believe support can build structures faster, and are the only class that are capable of building the emplaced guns, but I'm not entirely sure. Now, I like this feature, and I think it does add a lot to the game, especially considering how much DICE has doubled down on destruction being a staple of the franchise, but it definitely could use some clear explanation. And finally, we have the game's visuals. Now, I posted a video about this last week, comparing this game to Battlefield 1, and a lot of you mentioned in the comments that it does look like a reskin. Now, I've given a ton of reasons above why this is not just a reskin, and after playing Battlefield 5 and then jumping back to Battlefield 1 last night, the visual differences are pretty apparent. The biggest change, as I noted before, are the new snow and particle effects. It looks great in Battlefield 5 and really adds to the immersion. But the weapon models also look much better in Battlefield 5, and once we get the full game, I'll need to do a comparison of similar gun models to really demonstrate my point. There's a ton of great small details like bullet casings from teammates firing machine guns upstairs, and a beautiful attention to detail with each and every weapon model. It's an impressive looking game, and it feels like a slight step up in visual quality from its predecessor. Now I'm crossing my fingers that the performance will improve by October, as it currently performs pretty poorly in comparison, but we'll have to see. Overall, I think Battlefield 5 is showing a lot of promise. I've been a fan of the series since it began, and I've found something to enjoy in each game. But Battlefield 5 really feels like it's taking advice from its fan base, and returning the game to the more competitive atmosphere it established back with Battlefield 2 years ago. I got a very Bad Company Battlefield 2 vibe from this experience, and it'll be interesting to see what the final game feels like with the addition of all the new weapons, vehicles, and map designs. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this first look, and if you want to see more content like this in the future, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos posted every week.